Why should I belong to a church? And to answer that question, I want to talk about three different answers. The first one is the wrong answer. The second is the basic answer. And the third is the best answer. Let's begin with the wrong answer, shall we? I have heard people talk about church as a way to earn cosmic grace from the Creator. It's almost like God is watching you on the weekend and asking what you're doing, and God is hoping from God's infinite place on high that you will put your behind in a church pew. And there's this idea that we can make God happy if we go and we attend church. Not only that, but you'll notice there are some people who really enjoy boring church because they believe they're there for the right reasons, not to be entertained. So they wear boring church as like a badge of honor to say, see God, I'm here and I'm miserable, but I'm here for you. There are also people who believe that if they study the Bible exhaustively and find every truth that is in the Bible's pages, they will be able to discern which church is the right church and which church is the false church. My friends, all of these are the wrong answer. Anyone who says, I want to belong to a church so God will love me more is going in the wrong direction because we believe that God fully loves all of us to God's fullest capacity from the get-go. So this idea that we should go to church is not one that's tied to our eternal salvation or God's love. There is a better way to view church, which moves us from the wrong answer to the basic answer. Now you may be asking, what's a basic answer? Well, as you all know, faith ebbs and flows, right? And basic answers are really good in seasons of doubt because it doesn't require you to do or believe anything. It's just like the ground floor of your thought process, right? So the basic answer is for the moments of existential crises. To go and describe why we should belong to a church, I'm going to go to an unlikely source, which is the JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association. We have some fans here this morning. I don't think anyone here is applauding the graphic design of this journal. Is that right? Now, I want to be very clear. I do not sit around at night reading the JAMA to put myself to sleep. I've never read it before, but I have been pushed this direction because there's been some interesting studies over the last several years that talk about church and your personal health. If you go to JAMA Internal Medicine from 2016, they published a study that says frequent attendance at religious services was associated with significantly lower risk of all-cause cardiovascular and cancer mortality among women. Religion and spirituality may be an underappreciated resource that physicians could explore with their patients as appropriate. So that's from the internal medicine doctors, but it doesn't stop there. The epidemiologists in 2018 published a study that said, compared with never attendance, at least weekly service attendance was subsequently associated with greater life satisfaction and positive affect, greater volunteering, greater sense of mission, more forgiveness, and lower probabilities of drug use and early sexual initiation. And even just a few years ago in 2020, the psychiatrists published in their journal their own study, which found that the findings suggest that frequent attendance at religious services is associated with lower subsequent risk of deaths from despair, which are deaths related to drugs, alcohol, and suicide. So if we took all the faith out of it, right, and you were in a season of severe doubt and you needed just a basic answer, the basic answer of why anyone would want to belong to a church is, I want to belong to a church to have a healthier life. You may feel like this is propaganda. My friends, this is science. And the JAMA has not been co-opted by the religious right? So that's the basic answer. Let's talk about the best answer, shall we? Because there's one that's a little bit better than I'm in this for me, right? The best answer is rooted in a story that takes place in Matthew chapter 22 in the city of Jerusalem. Now, Jesus is speaking to religious officials at the temple. We assume it was in the court of the Gentiles, which is right here. And a religious leader goes to Jesus and says, Jesus, we have 613 commandments. Which one is the best? And Jesus answers this person. Jesus says to him, you must love the Most High God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. Now, I assume the religious leader at this point nodded his head and started to walk away. And as he was walking away, Jesus said, the second is like it. And the religious leader turns around and says, well, I only asked for one. What's this second commandment you're going to talk about? And before Jesus can answer that question, he proceeds and says, you must love your neighbor as yourself. And then he says the real kicker, which is on these two commandments, the whole law is based, and the prophets as well. Now, in Jesus' day and age, this represented the majority of the Bible. So Jesus is saying, hey, I know you find a lot of value in Bible study, but I can save you a lot of time. It's all leading you to loving God and loving others. That's the whole point. So if you like reading the Bible, great, but you can skip it if you keep trying to love God and love others with all that you have. This leads directly into the best answer of why anyone would want to belong to a church. The best answer we can give is, I want to belong to a church to become a more loving person. Specifically, more loving of God, more loving of others, and I would dare to add just a little bit to what Jesus is saying. I think it's implied, which is more loving of myself. This is what churches should do for everyone who encounters them. It should lead them to being more kind, more compassionate, more forgiving people. And let's imagine that you got involved at Paradox Church and you spent years here, and then you all of a sudden had to move away. And then after a couple of years away, you come back and you visit again, and I say, how are things going? You tell me it's going great. And then you say to me, I want to tell you something about Paradox. And before you say anything, I think to myself, there is the highest compliment that anyone can pay me, and I hope that that's this. And if you were to say this, this would be the best thing of what Paradox is trying to do, and you would nail it on the head, is if someone says, Paradox Church has helped me become a more loving person.